We're back with another episode, but first, the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out a complete list of the sponsors listed there. I want to thank a few of them now. Gallo Technologies, Rhino Metals, Blackwater Ammunition, and, of course, Enforce Weapon Lights, Full Quartz and Firearms, Pulsar Thermal Imaging Technology, and, of course, the complete list is listed on the page. Go check it out. Everywhere podcasts are heard. We're back, and I got an awesome episode today. I'm excited. This guy's done it all in the fitness industry. He's got quite the story to tell, and we have quite the history, so I'm excited to have him. We have the one and only Pj Braun. What's going on, brother?
Thank you.
I'm excited.
A lot of history between us.
A lot of history between us, and for everybody listening that doesn't know, Pj and I go back a while, and I'm excited to have him. I consider him a friend. I think he's done phenomenal things in the fitness industry, built a company from the ground up, and done so much awesome work all around the business, and everybody tends to know who Blackstone is.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
What do you want to start with today?
Where do we begin? So I think people don't realize how far back we go. We both have Northeast origins. We both grew up in the same area, and I worked for you at one point, which was even awesome.
Yeah. Well, what's really funny is going back even farther than that. So my childhood best friend, Jay Castaldi, who's actually done really well in life. He's a money manager. He's actually my financial advisor. I have no money to advise me on anymore, but before I got my divorce, he was the guy. But he's very good, and you worked with him. How did that start?
Well, so it's funny. So Castaldi and I, we started out in finance together at Mass Mutual many moons ago. Mm-hmm. One of my first jobs out of college, and we did maybe 3 years together, which was a lot of fun. I had a blast. I ended up segueing into the banking career, which was a little different, and Jason decided he wanted his own headache, which is his own shop and everything else to deal with. So I believe he splintered off with Brendan Naughton at the time, and I love those guys. It's awesome. They taught me how to sell. They taught all those. Jason and I came up together, went through the training together, everything. And I like to work out, and I had spent a lot of time with Jason, went out to see him, and he was like, well, I have this friend, and his name's PJ, and you should check him out. At the time, it was way back in the Species days. Like, it was way back. So we go back a while, and we started communication and a little bit of a friendship, I think, somewhere along that point, and then I would come see you periodically at shows, and then we had the serendipitous opportunity of working together, which was awesome.
Yeah, so it's funny because I think Castaldi is crazy, and when I hired you, he was like, I can't believe you hired John Bartolo. He's fucking nuts. And I was like, you're pretty crazy. And he was like, no, he's crazy. He's like, he's good crazy, though. You guys are going to get along well.
Right.
And so I have to share this story.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you know this story.
Go ahead.
When we first started working together, right, we were really excited. I wanted to bleed into the gun industry because we have so many police, military guys that love Blackstone Labs. And obviously, the gun industry is way bigger than the fitness industry, right? So I was like, John, you're going to be my guy to help me, like, get into this. And so we went to the Arnold one year, and I had at the time a lot of really soft, like, just millennial, like, just liberal, like, pussy kids that were kind of like scared of guns and, like, kind of scared of you.
Right.
And they were like, well, who's going to room with John Bartolo? And I'm like, he's not a vampire, you know what I mean? Like, what's the big deal? And they were like, everyone's scared to room with him. And I'm like, you guys fucking kidding me? I go, excuse my language, by the way. I go, put Cody Montgomery with him. And Cody was like friggin' 19 or 20 at the time.
It was awesome.
And so they were like, are you really going to do that to Cody? I'm like, yo, you guys are crazy. They're going to get along great. Cody's a little Texas boy.
Yeah.
So the next morning, Cody comes walking in with the biggest smile on his face that I've ever seen.
One night with me, we'll do that.
I go, what are you so happy about? He goes, dude, Bartolo taught me like 300 ways to kill somebody with a Swiss Army knife last night. Every possible way that you could. He's awesome. I'll room with him every time. And I was like, oh, that's fucking beautiful.
What a Swiss Army knife. I think it was a pencil. So, yeah, no, that was, Cody's awesome. And that was like the beginnings of me getting to see. And I wanted to learn from you when I spend time with you because you've always done things out of the box when it comes to marketing. So it was really for me a passion of learning and getting to absorb some of the things that the principles that you push, which you create a unique family atmosphere with your athletes, and it's a lot of fun. It's kind of, I almost liken it, the booth atmosphere, to like almost like a jamboree, if that doesn't sound too weird. But it's like it's just a lot of fun, and the energy's good, and you don't want to leave the booth. We never even talked about breaks.
No,
that was the best part. I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Well, it's still amazing, but in the old days, before I went through my divorce, I was like getting hammered all the time.
Right.
And then, I had all that happen, and I've been sober for 3 years, but we used to have bottles of vodka in the back of the booth.
Oh, yeah.
And our booth was like a party. Mm-hmm. And so we always did a huge booth at the Arnold and the Olympia. We had the giant Prices Right wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And so there would be a line 2 hours long. We would always have one really, really hot fitness model, like being like the Vanna White, manning the wheel, right? And so people would be waiting in line for like 2 hours, and we'd walk down the line and be like, hey, what are you guys waiting in this line for? And they'd be like, we don't know, we just want to spin the wheel.
That's the Arnold in a nutshell. That's the Arnold in Olympia. SHOT Show's not too far behind, but that's people wait in line 6 hours for a candy bar.
Yeah,
it's like a fucking thing.
It's funny, they didn't even know. The wheel was that big of a draw. The people at the Arnold that run the show, they said, you guys have the craziest booth that we've ever had. And I took a lot of pride in that, because that shows such a big show.
And it was unique because it drew people in, and it was fun, and nobody really cared about what the prize was.
No, because most of the prizes were like socks.
Yeah, it wasn't like anything super exciting.
Yeah,
but it was fun.
There was one $50 prize, and there was like a couple free pre-workouts.
Right.
But most of it was just like socks, stickers, silly stuff like that.
So we get this awesome opportunity to work together, and along the way, it was so much fun because you get to meet everybody in the industry, and like you said, everybody likes to stop by the booth at some point. So that's a lot of fun. What made you come up with some of those concepts and some of those ideas to be different, to be out of the box like that?
So the way that it all really started was, I'll do a Cliff Notes version of the history. I obviously started out as a bodybuilder, right? And I went to school on and off for a bunch of years. Didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be a gynecologist at one point. Thank God I didn't do that.
Right.
I was going to get into endocrinology, but I gathered all of this different
data.
And so what I had started doing was I had an online consulting business specifically for women.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had relationships with literally hundreds and hundreds of women in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started Blackstone Labs, it was a very aggressive male-based company, and Instagram wasn't even fucking, excuse my language, invented yet.
Mm-hmm.
Can I swear
No,
on here?
I remember. Yeah, explicit. Roll with it.
I'll excuse myself anyway for my grandma. So when we first started, I had my consulting business, and what I used to do was I would go on Facebook, because at the time, Facebook had opened up the business.facebook.com, and you could pay for your ads to get bloated out, and nobody was doing that back then. So I would put a transformation, and I'd get like 10, 12 people that would be like, how do I transform like this? What I would do, I'd be like, inbox me, sign up this weekend.
Right.
And so I had so much success with that before I started Blackstone Labs. We
Right.
were making over $100,000 a year just on Facebook. So when Blackstone started, I was like, it was a no-brainer. I got to do Facebook ads. So we only had a couple of products in the beginning, and we were blasting that out. And it got to the point where I was like, man, this can be something really, really big.
100%.
The first year and a half was just me in a spare bedroom at my old house, the infamous pink room, we called it. And I did everything myself. I did the ads myself. I would call stores myself. I would package everything myself. And that year we did 1.2 million. And so after that,
And you thought you made it. You were like, this is it. This is the come up.
no, and I was like, I'm going to retire from coaching. This is how it's going to be.
Done.
And so the following year, I had brought on my partner, and we got into expanding. Now Instagram was starting to become something. So I was
Right.
like, now I got to learn this freaking Instagram shit too. And so what we were doing, we were just posting transformations and people using the products on Instagram. And it started to really pick up. So now, year 3, we do 9.8 million, right? So we go from half of a year doing 200K, 1.2 the second, and then 9.8. Now everyone's paying attention to us,
Right.
and everybody wants to be a part of it. So we decided that we needed to build this like cool affiliate program. And I was like, the only other company that I see that's doing like a smart ambassador program is First Form. And those guys are really, really smart. And I thought we could make this. and this is no disrespect to them, just a cooler version of what they're doing.
Right.
Because we're kind of a more in-your-face, like raw, rugged brand. Like I was working with adult stars. I was working with guys like you that are getting into
blowing shit up.
Yeah. So we didn't want to be like your mom's company. We wanted to be the aggressive, hardcore shit. And I knew that wasn't going to be like the $100 million a year company, but I didn't care about that. I wanted the most badass company that I was proud of that I could do for life.
Right.
So it got to a point where finally there was a day I got mad over something, and I just really like went off online over how I really felt about something, and it got the most positive response ever. And I was like, you know what? I guess that just tells you really just need to just be real.
You got to let it fly.
Let it go.
You got to let it fly.
A lot of people were offended at one point, but more and more people started to come in, and we started doing a lot with the military, a lot with our police, and we became like a really like cultish brand.
Well, I think the fitness industry is much like the gun industry in that regard, where everybody gets afraid to speak out about something, whatever the topic is. Everybody kind of gets that like sheepishness. They don't want to like say anything bad. Like, in the gun industry, nobody wants to say anything bad about the NRA or the NSSF or anything like that. You have something similar in the fitness industry where nobody wants to speak up and say what's really going on. I mean, look how long it took for steroids to hit mainstream air. You know what I mean? It's like it's like a dark, dirty secret everybody kind of keeps in the basement.
And I always talked openly on my podcast about steroids. Like people would ask me questions of how to do them, and I'm like, look, I'm going to give you the answers from practical applications that people have done for years. There's no data on this. You can't find textbooks.
There's nothing. There was years ago. There was Gear User. That was it.
Yeah, or there was like the anabolics magazines that you could read and stuff like that.
The Bible.
Stuff. Yeah.
Remember the Bible? It was huge.
I mean, we all had that stuff when we were young, but now there's way more practical data, but you're still not going to get any actual like anecdotal like in
white paper.
It's just never going to happen. No. So being so honest and open got things more and more up front. And my whole thing with the booths, when we did the booths, right, I remember the first time I ever went to a show was with Dave Palumbo in 2006. I was helping the muscular development booth, and he brought me to see Jack Owak, who's now the CEO of Bang.
Yeah.
At the time, Bang was not even an idea yet.
Yeah.
Did
he have VPX? What was it?
He had VPX, right? And so we had this product called Redline that was just this crazy energy drink, right? So we get to the booth. It's my first time ever being in Vegas before. And he had 20 girls just completely topless, just spray painted blue because Redline was blue.
Jack's crazy.
And I was like, oh my God, all these girls are naked. I'm like, this is freaking amazing. And Dave's like, where'd you find all these girls? And Jack's like, I put out an ad in like the stripper magazine. And I told them I would pay whatever a day, and they all came and showed up. And I just told them, look, we're going to spray you. We're going to put a bunch of stripper poles. But that booth had people around it all freaking day.
The Bang booth was legendary.
Yeah, well, then he
became Bang.
It became Bang. And it turned into the dancing and everything else now. But, like, if you go to Colombia, like, a few years ago, I was in Colombia. The Bang booth in Colombia is nuts.
Yeah.
It's like
butt naked chicks everywhere.
It's like Zumba on steroids, you know what I mean? Like it's
butt
like
naked.
Way, way different. So I was like, back then I was like, to me, that caught my eye. Everybody was talking about it. Like all my younger friends that the first time they were ever at the Olympia, it's Vegas too. They're like, dude, did you see those girls that in the Redline booth?
See, now what's funny about Jack's arc is, he's upgraded. Now he has like real dancers.
Yes. No, he's switched.
He's got like fucking real, and he's giving out gold. He's awesome.
So to me, I get a lot of flack for people being like, "Oh, you guys push sex too much." But when I was a kid,
I think they're way heavier than you. Yeah.
Oh, dude. When I was a kid,
Bang compared to Black, yeah, I would notch Bang up a click.
It just when I was a kid, right, it would be a picture of like Jay Cutler on the beach. With like 7 beautiful girls in bikinis, like grabbing his legs and arms and stuff.
With 4 purses.
Yeah.
Love you, Jay.
We do love Jay the most. So I always felt like, as a young man, I enjoyed seeing that stuff.
Right.
So then you had the complete opposite side, was like the universal nutrition side, which always showed like the poor bodybuilder living in the dungeon, like, my life sucks, but doesn't matter, I'm a bodybuilder. I hated that marketing.
The full-time bodybuilder.
I hated that marketing. Like, there's a lot of positive that can come from the mindset you get from bodybuilding to push yourself hard. So with our booths, we turned it into like party time at the Blackstone booth. Like, you're going to come, you're going to see the coolest group of people, cool-ass athletes. They're going to want to talk to you, mix it up with you. You're going to see some jack guys. You're going to see some dudes that blow shit up. You're going to see some girls with the biggest boobs you've ever seen. And you're going to have a fun-ass time. And that's how I always wanted to have. I wanted to have a party at the booth. Otherwise, it's just boring.
Now, running a supplement company isn't easy. And a lot of people don't understand, you know, you're juggling chainsaws, flaming chainsaws, literally, because you have all these going ons. If you're not promoting, you're selling, or you're trying to build deals, and it's a lot of work. It's never ending. And what you built, being a New England guy, being somebody that really, took all that energy that you were at one point putting into bodybuilding and into the business side of it. And at the same time realizing not a lot of people can do this. There's a few people in bodybuilding history that I've ever seen do this. Understand, hey, you know what? I might not go this far in the sport, but I'm going to transition and do this. The only person I could compare it to is what's his face that MCs the events thing there. He's got a fucking crazy story. Who MCs the events? Where's Joe?
Bob Ciccarello.
Bob Chick, yeah. So Bob Chick, you know the story. He had the chance to compete in Olympia, and he turned it down.
Well, he didn't give up getting his pro card until he was 40 years old. Finally got it.
But he knew he was never going to, so he transitioned, and he became the voice of bodybuilding, essentially.
So for me, like, when I was young, my parents knew that I was so into this, right? And I was like, I made the decision that I was going to leave school, build my personal training business, and my grandpa was really old fashioned. He was a engineer. He actually helped design the Hubble Space Telescope. He's been on Yahoo.
That's amazing.
And he was so bummed out. He was like, "You're just going to be a loser and lift weights." And I was like, "I actually believe that I can do something really special with this." And I told everybody, "I'm going to try as hard as I can to be one of the top 10 best in the world by the time I'm 30. I promise you, if I'm not there, I'll retire when I'm 30. 30 blew out my shoulder really, really bad. And I was like, I'm going to give one more year. And that's what happened. 31, I had my worst placing ever at USA's. And I was ready to be done. That was July 24th. And that was 2012. And I started Blackstone Labs September 1st of that same year.
It's almost
so 6 weeks later.
It's almost your retirement anniversary. It's almost. You can celebrate.
Yeah, it is.
The day you were really born. I think you're doing what you were meant to do.
I think so.
And I think it's where you're supposed to be. And I think bodybuilding and fitness need guys like Jack, guys like you. Jack, you got to love a guy who comes in with a bag of money and just doesn't give a fuck.
Absolutely.
Because it shakes things up.
And he's always been like that.
And that's what, to be perfectly honest with you, PJ, I would love to see that in the gun industry, right? Like, I'd love to see a guy with a wheelbarrow full of money just come in and fuck it all up. Because that's what causes innovation and causes people to think out of the box and do things differently. And, there's different standards. And bodybuilding's evolved so much in its model and how it makes money and how it does business, even in your time. And you've adapted and you've overcome it and you've continued to do well with it. And I think it's a testament to how we were raised. I said this to Dana White when he was on the show. There's something about that New England water, right?
Yeah,
like you'll bite somebody's fucking ankles. You don't care. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do business. And I think I've never known an athlete to have a quote unquote bad breakup with you. Everybody
there's
has
one. There's one.
It might be one.
There's one.
But I've heard a lot of, there's a lot of stories about different brands, but I think yours has held the test of time, and I think you've done a phenomenal job with it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of our athletes have been with us for 5 years, 6 years, since the very beginning. And so my tagline all these years has always been loyalty is everything. And anyone that comes to Blackstone, they always say, they're like, listen, if you're loyal to PJ, he's not going to ask for a tremendous amount of stuff. Just make your posts, do your job, and he'll go out of his way to take care of you and help you build your career. And really, I love seeing the people that have been with me for a few years decide, like, hey, I'm going to go start my own company. Seth Feroce was one of them. Yep. And Seth blew up. And, when we reached out to Seth, I competed with Seth, and he was so good, right? And I was like, man, you got to I know that you like Blackstone's products. Why don't you come out? We're starting this new company.
We're your own line.
Well, I said, we're coming out with this new company, Prime. Why don't you come, be one of the faces of that? We'll do all the Blackstone stuff, and we'll kick ass together. And we had an amazing year. Everyone loved him. And then going into the second year, he came to me, and he was like, listen, I had a company that offered me $10 grand a month and said, what do we got to do to get you to leave Blackstone Labs? And I told him straight up, I go, well, I appreciate your honesty. And if they're offering you that much,
take it and run.
I say take it, and then honestly, man, put your money away and do your own thing, because I've seen you come here and the amount of people that love you and ask for you need to do your own thing.
And he's out of the box too. I mean, it's not like he's making cotton candy pre-workout. He's making like gin flavored fucking.
Well, you know what? People really respect the realness, even though there's a lot of fakes that promote how real they are. But he's very, cut and dry, and he says what he feels. And people respect that. That was what we always respected about him, too. And I think that's what he respected about me. So he went to that other company. He was with them for I think 7-8 months. And then he went and did his own thing. And, and now he's doing great. There's a bunch of people that we've seen do that. We had a girl, little Carrie June, that I freaking found her when she was 18.
Yeah.
Such a sweet kid. And she's great because she actually still gives me credit years later. But a couple years with her, she was killing it for us. And then she wanted to start her own thing. She started her own clothing line, Mini Beast Apparel. The girl's got a monstrous following, and she's got a successful business. So I love seeing that.
It's kind of like developing a coaching tree. It's like a business tree.
Yeah. I joke around and I say, I'm like Hugh Hefner, and they're like my little girlfriends that I let flee out. Go do your thing.
Of course. That's that, and look, if you work really hard, it's not enough. You have to obviously have the brains to go with it, and you have to make the right moves strategically. And with Blackstone, there was so much, that I saw that was innovative, that was different, that was exciting, that kind of changed. And I was like, I could do this. I'm like, this brand makes sense for me. And I had a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the time. Now, I know it's not been easy for you, up, down, left, right, everything with the company, with the brand. How is it progressing forward with everything, with the litigation and everything else?
So 2016, that was I was on top of the world, right? I was married to who I thought was my dream girl. I was in business with my best friends. So that was the year we made the Inc. 500, 27th fastest growing company in the United States. We got to go to a big event, got to meet Tony Robbins, all these other cool guys. It was amazing. I got to bring my mom and everyone to that. I mean, it was truly
victory.
It was just the most satisfying victory.
Mic drop.
And that year ended shortly after that. And then in the month of February, after a long struggle trying to make it work out, I get served divorce papers from my wife. My partner and I decided to go separate ways. And then all in the same month, the FDA decides to come and raid Blackstone Labs. And they came in guns blazing, took all the computers, shut us down, took out all the inventory. We had no idea why. And so it took them 3 years to then make their indictments. And now we've been in this position since then. And so the following year when that happened, so we went from Inc. 500, 27th fastest growing company in the United States, to them taking all of our inventory. We have nothing to sell for months. We've got to, thank God, my partner, Jared Wheat, it was rough timing on him because he bought into the company because he was manufacturing for us, and he was like, I've never seen anybody grow the way that you guys do.
Of course.
So he buys in, and then that happens to us after. So he actually saved the day he fronted us all those products back. But it took a few months to be able to get them all. So we had to downsize the company by about 10 people. That was a rough year. I took myself off payroll just to try to keep people there for a year. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or anything like that, but I loved those guys. I felt like I was letting my brothers and sisters down, And then eventually at the end of the year, my dad was like, look, we got to trim this company up, man. You can't just keep making no pay. You got to just let some of these guys go. And so we trimmed the company down about 10 people, and we just started becoming way more efficient.
Streamline.
And then we just kept coming up each year, better and better and better. And we've grown ourselves back up from being bankrupt and almost bankrupt in 2017 to up since then, actually, almost 100%.
How's the case progressing now?
So finally, we get to go to trial, finally, after all this time. So it's been a long, long road. I have maintained from the beginning, I still feel that I'm innocent and that I'm very confident. My attorneys are awesome. And, it's up to the jury to decide that. But, without being able to say too much about it, I just think that there's a lot of confusion in the supplement industry. And because of that, and there being, major differences between the FDA and the DEA on what is okay and what isn't okay, that causes a lot of confusion in the marketplace. And guys like us, we never wanted to break any rules. We've always been, we never got a warning. We just always did what we were supposed to do. And that's how I still want to be. I want to put out the best, strongest, legal accepted products that I can in the right efficacious doses that actually work. I don't want to sprinkle bullshit into things because there's a little bit of data that says it's good and get a bunch of people to buy my shit. I'll never be a GNC vitamin shot brand. I'll never clean myself up. GNC tried to work with us for years and it just wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to water my shit down just to go in there. To me, that's like the kiss of death.
Does GNC still move the needle? Seriously,
no,
I don't know.
No. They closed so many stores. They've gone through like 5 CEOs in the past, however many amounts of years. Everything is direct to consumer now, anyway. Especially after COVID shut down. Like we were a direct to consumer company anyway, so we were able to. The first month was rough because everyone lost their mind, but after that we were able to sustain. We got through COVID well, and we adapted, we evolved, and we really push. We have our call center, and we really push direct to consumer big. Now the wholesale accounts that stayed in business, those guys are thriving. Sadly, a lot of them closed. You know what I mean? But everybody had to evolve for that. It's just like you said earlier, the business keeps changing.
Yeah, it continues to evolve, and it's going to keep changing.
No, and you've got to be on top of it at all times. You got to be watching. Like it is a very. You have to be kind of crazy. Like you've heard people say like Conor McGregor, you got to be obsessed, to be the best. You really do, man. Like you can't take time off. It's impossible for me to rest and take breaks because. It's like I slack once, I make one wrong move, and then next thing you know, we drop down, and I can't help guys, pay the bills anymore. And that's
no wiggle room.
No, and especially in the situation that we are, because we spend so much money on legal fees.
Does it bother you how the perception doesn't equal the reality? People don't understand behind the hard work of everything that's seen is the unseen.
Absolutely. So if you look at my Instagram, there's a lot of people that meet me and they're like, man, you're such a nice, cool guy in real life. I never would have thought that on Instagram. I go, on Instagram is smoke and mirrors. I put out all the cool shit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put out the stuff that I have to do with the lawyers or the bad shit behind the scenes or, the IRS situations. Who wants to see that shit? Right. I'm putting out the fun marketing stuff. I'm putting out the positives, but the amount of time that I spend dealing with either reading lawsuits or reading paperwork or being involved with lawyers or having to find evidence and emails and things like that is so time consuming and it's exhausting.
Right. Now, obviously an event like that brings you closer to those that have your best interest in mind,
yeah,
which is huge. And the most overused word is circle, right? And people you put around you and people you trust. And obviously along the way you start to look at everybody a little sideways, as it goes. How do you process that? How do you deal with that? Do you just cut people out? Is it like a process of elimination?
So it's funny that you bring this up because I don't even know if we talked about this, but this past 6 months, year or so was a really hard time for me. First of all, I was sick with an autoimmune disease. We don't need to get into that right now, but I saw so many changes in Blackstone Labs, and there was a guy that was essentially like my partner running the show with me, and he finally just broke down everything from the case and everything else. He was like, man, I'm just not happy anymore, man. It's so depressing being here, and it's just stressful.
It's hard.
And he was like, I'm getting really, really depressed. And I was like, I love the guy. He was like my brother, so I wanted him to work on his mental health. And I was like, that this is what they want, right? You're letting them win. I'm like, I won't let them win. I go, some days I wake up and I'm like, man, I fucking hate my life now. But I believe that I'm going to win and I'm not going to back down.
And this, the fight is part of the journey, right? There's always
exhausting.
There's always going to be the fight. And it doesn't matter. Insert whatever enemy you want. There's always going to be the fight. So you kind of have to take a little, you have to like that. You have to get up at, and you have to sometimes, I say this all the time and it's not directed at this situation, but it speaks to it. You have to love being hated as much as you love being loved. You almost have to love it more.
And we talked about this on my last podcast. I talked about, I'm tired of apologizing for the things that we celebrated Michael Jordan for.
Right.
And I watched everyone that watched his series that's like us cried after every episode, right?
Sure.
And he was just the greatest winner of all time because he wouldn't accept anything less than fucking perfection. And I am like that as a boss, but I'm doing it because I believe in what we're doing so much, and I take care of these guys, and I'll carry them far, but I won't accept slacking, and I won't accept guys not doing things the right way.
You can't put your head down and go through the motions.
No, we had almost like a mutiny at Blackstone Labs. A bunch of guys that when my VP left, the guys were all working under him. I wasn't really involved in that sector of Blackstone Labs. I'm not a tech guy. They came to me one night, and it was almost like they planned it out. They were basically like, we believe that we are not paid properly for what we're doing. And I felt very attacked.
Cornered, yeah.
And I honestly, I'm gonna be honest, it actually hurt my feelings because I do so many things for those guys. But what they didn't know is that when my VP left, when he left, I asked him one thing. I said, if there's an emergency, who's a tech genius like you that can help me out? Because that's what I'm losing with you, dude. I'm losing like my all-star. And he goes, I go, is there anyone here? He goes, no. He goes, just call me. We're still going to be best friends. And I go, no. I need a guy. And he was like, call Chris the intern, which years ago we had this kid that was a Blackstone fan that wanted to intern at a tech company from college, right? 2018. This kid wound up figuring out something on our abandoned cart that made us $200,000 that year. Just an intern. So when he left, I gave him like what his salary would have been, and we developed like a bond. He's now doing big things. He works for huge companies. And so I was like, Chris the intern? Okay. I love that kid. So I reached out to Chris the intern when he left, and I said, I'd like you to come in and audit all these guys, because I don't know about this, but I trust you. So what these guys didn't know is I now found out that some of the guys that were basically coming up to me and saying that they were overworked and underpaid, they were actually greatly overpaid and kind of lying about what they were doing because they wanted to make themselves seem more important because they figured that I didn't know.
Busy doesn't equal productive.
Exactly. And I was like so bummed out. I'm like, man, they actually like tried to take advantage of me. So what I wound up doing was I had to shake things up. One of the guys I fired, and I knew that I wasn't going to, the ringleader said some really disrespectful stuff to my dad right in front of me. And I knew after that, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get through this, because my dad has been the most ride or die loyal worker for us all these years. And so when it was all said and done, I cleaned out a bunch of guys. I pretty much wiped out that department, and it was rough. So what I wound up doing in the end was all the money that we saved, I was going over it with my bookkeeper, and she's like, you know, your dad has never taken a raise. And I felt so fucking bad. Like, that's my dad, you know? And I'm like, man, you know, they say, like, you always, like, forget the ones that you love the most. So I was like, let's just move all that over to his salary. And she was like, that's such an awesome idea, you know, because he'll do anything for you. So when it was all said and done, all this bullshit that I went through that was really stressful, when it was all said and done, I was done with everything. My dad was like, how you doing? And I was like, good. And he goes, can you just do me a favor, man? He goes, please don't hire any of your good friends. He goes, he's like, they always
please don't hire any of your friends. Don't hire.
He was like, they always fuck you over, and you always do so much, and this happens every time. And I said to him, I go, you know what, man? I don't even need to have friends anymore at this point. I'm like, I got you. I got you. You're my best friend. And I gave him a hug. And when I was leaving, I go, by the way, I took the money that we saved on those kids and I put it into your salary. And he, like, the way that I was hugging him and the way that he kind of like, almost like, he like exhaled, because my dad would never ask for anything like that. And it was like, I knew that he was going to have tears in his eyes, and I didn't want to cry in front of him. So I just walked out right away. But I was so happy that it was able to end so positive after all that. Now we're in a really, really good spot.
You know, it's hard. There's a scene in a movie. It's probably the only good scene in the movie, in the Wall Street 2 movie where he bonuses the kid out right before the company. You know, they tie it up in the whole, you know, .com whatever market drop. But he gives him a bonus. Like, there's not a lot of good people left in the world that'll do shit like that. That'll like, here, go. And he says, like, go spend that money on your girlfriend or something, you know, go get out of my office. But people don't do that anymore. There's not a lot of people that just take care of people or just do, in the end, what might be the right thing. It's not always easy. But I can't think of another story where I can't think of another person in the fitness industry where their dad means so much. I know you've held him close to the vest, but he's been a huge rock for you through all this and through everything. I know that. And I think that's awesome. And I think if you could take care of family first, and they're going to be there when it's up, they're going to be there when it's down.
Dude, he is the hardest worker that I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying it because he's my dad. Everyone says it too. So when my dad came down, so at the time we had 6 employees, right? And our biggest headache was shipping. Mm-hmm. We had a bunch of these young kids, like high school kids, packaging our stuff,
mislabeling.
So my dad,
tags all wrong.
Yeah, it was like we were growing fast, and so we're getting into wholesale, and wholesale is different because you got to ship
pallets going the wrong place.
And so my dad, his business had gone under. He had an international moving company, right? And nobody was really moving anymore overseas. So
logistics,
dude, he was working like 80 hours a week in this warehouse as a warehouse manager. And my parents were going through a rough time. They wound up losing their house. And I told him, I go, how much are you making, doing what you're doing? And it worked out to be like $5,000 a month. And I was like, that's it for all that fucking work? And I go, I'll tell you what, if you will move, I will be able to pay you $6,000 a month. And you'll work 40 hours a week. You'll get to work with me. And this company is going to grow into something really big. I'm sure of it. And he was like, man, your mom's going to have a hard time, like leaving. And
right.
I was like, why don't you just come down here first and see? So he actually
perfect place for him to retire too.
Dude, he came down first. And so my mom had a really hard time because my dad was down here for a couple months, like without my mom.
Right.
But they gave him the nickname the Sheriff because they were like, your dad came in here and just cleaned up the town real fast. Got all the younger kids like really organized. And he had so much experience that now he was getting us deals on logistics and all these other things. So as the company grew and his role grew, he started auditing all of the wholesale stuff that was going out. And he's a numbers guy. So he would pull me aside and he'd be like, hey, you can't do this order. And I'd be like, what do you mean? It's a $100,000 order. And he'd be like, yeah, but you're only profiting like $2,000 on it.
Yeah.
And you're giving away so much away for free and this and that. And then my sales guys started getting really, really pissed. And they're like, your dad's fucking up all our sales. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys are making a huge commission no matter what. But you're most of the time either hurting the company or you're barely making the company any money and you're giving away these prices that are screwing us for life. So my dad's actually helping us all out a lot. And eventually there was guys that couldn't handle that anymore. And so finally my dad was like, look, I know I don't have experience, but I've been watching this stuff close. I get how it works. I deal with a lot of the accounts anyway from shipping. He's like, let me just take over the wholesale. And I said, you know what? At least I know you're not going to screw me over.
Right.
And he took over the wholesale, and now the wholesale is, 50% of the company's business. And people tell me all the time, they're like, I love your dad. He's the best salesman I've ever worked with because he's not a pushy and annoying, but he'll do whatever he can to make you happy and make sure that you feel good.
When you get your crazy product ideas, does he tell you you're nuts or?
No, my dad is also like my biggest fan.
Right.
So he like even some of the shit that we do that gets us in lawsuits, like the Flintstone stuff, and like
he's warming up to it.
He loves it. He thinks it's funny. He just thinks it's a shame that the world is like that you can't do so many like silly funny things.
Right.
So for the most part, he's real supportive of most of the ideas that we have because a lot of the ideas that we have starts out as something that I think is funny.
I know that.
And I'm like, actually, you know what? Let's turn this into a product. Let's market this and have some fun with it,
Yeah, I always like that, the out of the box ideas. Like I was like, everything you would come out with, I'd be like, this is fucking awesome. I loved it. Everything. I mean, I was like, this is common sense. Mm-hmm. Like a common sense idea. Now, when you come out with a supplement, what people don't realize is how hard it is to acquire. Like, what is it? Like Hydroxycut was like the greatest supplement ever made or whatever, or Xenadrin or one of those.
Xenadrin was monstrous. So the ephedrine area, if you go back into the 90s, Bill Phillips just dominated. He dominated
EAS
everything
owned
with
it,
EAS.
yeah.
EAS was huge. That was the stuff I grew up on in high school taking.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, this is a perfect segue for me because this is gonna blow your mind when you hear this.
Blow it.
So it's called the 2021 creatine shortage. And it's going to be the biggest deal. It's already starting. That I can't even believe that this is actually something real. But there is going to be no creatine literally anywhere in the world. And so my dad is like so psyched up because my partner, Jared, he literally ordered like actual tons.
Barrels.
Of it. Like literal tons. Like metric tons. And so we have shitloads of creatine, and it's already happening where wholesale accounts that don't buy Blackstone Labs because they're like, you guys are too hardcore for us, they're reaching out to us and they're like, hey, you guys have creatine monohydrate, right? Because all the high school kids, everybody uses creatine, all the sports.
Right.
And so
we just had this talk the other day about creatine. We just had this
so
fucking
crazy.
talk.
I'm like, dude, are we going to corner the market on creatine now?
We own it. It's worth more than Coke.
How the hell did that happen? We've been doing all these crazy pro hormones and shit, and now everybody wants the creatine that bad. But watch, you're going to see, like, as this year goes on, you're going to be like, holy shit, PJ was right. Like nobody's able to get creatine.
Right. Yeah, no, I didn't realize there was a shortage. What's causing the shortage?
A lot of it is...
consumption?
No, a lot of it is that manufacturing is done in China, and there's problems with shipping coming in the ports. There's problems with manufacturing facilities getting shut down out there. That's what's happened to a lot of the pharma here.
Right.
So much stuff is produced in China. And that's what slowed us down with a lot of our other products too. So fortunately, we had gotten a lot of it in before all the madness started, but people are going to start, even here in the United States, it's going to start happening more and more where people aren't going to be able to get
how much will it go up in price?
Well...
Without giving away too much of the soup.
I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one, but I do think it's gonna go up in price. Yeah, because honestly, it's funny because all the fancy creatines that have come out over the years, I've always said this: good old fashioned creatine monohydrate is all you need.
Right.
You can dress it up, fancy it up any way you want, but good old fashioned creatine monohydrate, really 5 grams a day is plenty.
What did I take when I was what did we take when we were kids? We took like Celtec.
Yeah, Celtec was
I was going to say, Celtec was the shit. You had like 30 scoops.
It was like 880% better.
We were talking about this the other day. I'm going to talk about this. All right. When we were kids, do you remember Ultimate Orange?
Of course, dude.
It had dynamite. It had dynamite in it.
Dude.
We were having that debate. Did it have real dynamite in it?
So, dude, Ultimate Orange, when I was in high school...
That was the rumor. Don't even laugh, because Joe's too young. Well, you don't remember.
It was Dan Duchesne's. The steroid godfather. It was his product, right? And so, it came in a can, in a fucking
Joe,
tin
listen
can.
up. This is real.
So, I would... When this first came out, right?
It was dynamite.
Dude,
it literally was dynamite.
I would drink it. I had wood shop. 8th period, right? And then we had a gym on top of the school, this little bullshit gym. So I would drink it in woodshop.
And have a mild heart attack.
And dude, my woodshop teacher would be like, you cannot drink that shit in here, because my hands would be like shaking, like, don't go near the bandsaw. And
no regulations on that product.
You would go out and you would be a maniac in the gym. Your heart would be racing, but it made you like super, super strong. I think it was just a lot of ephedrine. But it actually tasted good too.
It tasted good. I remember that, but it was very suspicious, and it came in a can. And I remember you had to peel the top off, like it was like an edible or something. You had to peel. Remember, you had to peel the fucking.
It came in like one of those hot fries, like cans. You know what I mean? Where you
exactly, like cheese balls.
Yeah,
and you peeled the top off, and in it was this powder. And I'm not even gonna look at Joe and say anything. We were told, the rumor was it had dynamite in it.
It might have had some. Well, people always said that DNP was like dynamite. You know what I mean?
Had dynamite in it.
It made you sweat like crazy. It gave you like heart palpitations, but it made you strong as fuck.
Yeah. Before that, I only remember like Metrex.
Well, Metrex was like, they started out, right?
Yeah.
We had Bill Phillips and Metrex. And then you started getting into ephedrine came on the scene, and it changed everything because you had Ripped Fuel. Twin Lab had Ripped Fuel. Xenadrin, I thought, was the best. And then you had Hydroxycut, and you had all these companies that were just blowing up.
Xenadrin was like modafinil. You were flying on that.
Xenadrin was nuts, man. When I was a competitive powerlifting, and I would take 2 Xenadrin before each of my main lifts.
And then,
so that's six Xenadrin in a day, and I'd be like
in the bathroom twitching.
I'd have like a mixtape of like the same 3 Metallica songs just over and over and over again. I'd be like, don't fucking talk to me until I'm done lifting.
Slap me, I'm ready. I went to a powerlifting meet one time, and I remember seeing people give each other beatings, and I remember saying to the guy that ran it, I'm like, I don't want any of those beatings when I go, and everybody started cracking up.
And the girls even too, like the girls, like, you know, they
want the guys to hit them,
slap them in the back of the head by one of these big guys too. It's crazy.
Powerlifting is a different animal. Now
it really is.
Now, I remember that, and I remember Hydroxycut coming in, and you could not flip through a magazine.
Yeah.
Remember that? You could not flip through a magazine without seeing it. And then it blew the market up on its head. Like, everybody was like, what the fuck is going on? And BSN came in, and then some brands started coming in, and it changed the game. It continued to change and evolve. And then, you know, there was then, who was it? It was, wasn't Labrada was first. Wasn't, Gaspari was first. And Rich was kind of the first bodybuilder to do it, right? And he had said to me a story one time. He's like, I wish I sold back when I could have got like 50 million for it, you know?
They made big money. Before they went bankrupt, I believe they did 80 million that year. And then they unfortunately went bankrupt the next year. Actually, my partner Jared bought them after that. But so when he started, he was like driving from gym to gym when he first started. But he had the name, which was like, obviously I wasn't as good a bodybuilder as Rich Gaspari, but because of social media, I had a pretty strong name. That was my whole thing, was like, I can do this like you did. And when I was managing in college, I was managing a GNC, and I was like 20 years old, and that's when Gaspari started getting really popular. They had Super Pump 250, which everybody was buying, and then they had Halidrol, which was the real strong.
Oh, yeah. It came in the punch-outs. It looked like Halatest. It was like, I'm going to get ripped on this.
No, which wound up being Superdrol, which eventually then became banned. And then they had the Novadex, which is the really strong. Theirs was 6-oxo in the beginning, really strong anti-estrogen. So they had awesome shit. And I watched them start from like the little sketchy shelf at GNC.
Sketchy shelf.
You know, the little sketchy shelf. Yeah. To being like mainstream.
This motherfucker in here lives in that sketchy shelf. He is the sketchy shelf.
They had a key they had to get in there with.
They had a key. There was security.
That was the shit that everybody was stealing. All the guys that worked there would steal that stuff.
Yeah. It was like, I remember in GNC they had like the shelf. And then it became like a behind the counter thing.
Yep.
But before it was like in the back hidden. It was like the dirty movie section in a video rental place. It was like you went back there and it was like, and that was when Mark McGuire got busted. It was like, what was it called? I keep wanting to say
the original Andro.
Andro. Is that crazy? And then the market blows up, and everybody, you know, Rich kind of paved the way. Yep. Lee came on with those RTDs. He had those ready to drinks.
Much cleaner brand, but he's made it huge.
Yeah, those RTDs kind of kept him alive.
Absolutely.
Those are good. I've had a million of them in my life, and I can't even drink protein drinks without gagging because they're like the acid reflux.
No, they came in those little cardboard things.
They came in those little cardboard things. But I love it. I think it's a tremendous journey what you've done, and I believe it or not, I admire it so much from afar because I talk about it with this guy all the time. You don't see bodybuilding and shooting are very similar in a sense. People want the perfect resume. They want you to be a 9-time Mr. Olympia. You can't have a supplement brand unless you do this. So I love and respect guys that come in and fuck that all up and disrupt it. It's like you can. Bill Belichick never played it down in the NFL, and he's the best coach that ever walked the planet.
Absolutely.
So to me, the gold standard starts there. You know.
Yeah, and I've said to people before, like some of the best batting coaches that you've ever seen never played pro baseball. You know, that's kind of like the role that I felt like I was going to take when I knew that I wasn't going to be good enough. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like,
and be real.
Do I look like the guys that are really good with everything that I'm doing? And I was getting beat up.
You were close.
I was good in my time. Like if I was competing now, I would smoke most of the guys that are competing now. It's a much different time now.
Right.
It was very competitive back then.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even in the most competitive era. You know, like it progressively dwindled down, and then once they opened up all the other divisions, it kind of like watered it down quite a bit. And then the women's side of the sport got huge. Which was great. But I had so much pride in what I was doing, and I believed in my theories, my plans so much, and I always believed in the supplementation because to me, I knew when I was in college, I figured out fast that I just didn't really have the best genetics. So I wanted to take every other thing that I could to get better. And you learn a lot about these different supplements. I was making my own supplements back then. I was like ordering things from like trueprotein.com and ordering random things.
Bunsen burners going. Everything. I know. Listen, I get it. I've been there. It's like you start tinkering.
Yeah.
You start tinkering, and that's the only way to learn sometimes.
And you find out what really, really works. And a lot of people don't know.
It's crazy that no one's compiled like data, yet that maybe they have. I don't know. It's underground. I don't know. I haven't got those secret plans. Yeah, I haven't got the secret form. That's Jay. If there's like a secret formula that no. But yeah, you're right. Genetics play the biggest. You have to have the genes, and you have to be able to hold those types of muscle bellies and have them. That's why Ronnie was such a freak, and that's why Ronnie changed the game forever. And Ronnie, to me, I always tell Jay, like, Dorian was one of my favorites, but Ronnie and him kind of really evolved the whole.
Dude, for me, of course, I was reading the magazines, but the first pro bodybuilders I ever saw in real life was 2003, my first show ever. I did that show natural, actually, just because I wanted to see like how I could be. I was 189 pounds. No, I placed fifth, and I was like, I was like, and then I was like, now I'm ready to do it. Now I'm ready to do it. I tortured myself for that show, but the guest posers at that show, 2003, were Ronnie Coleman, who's Mr. Olympia, and Jay Cutler. So Ronnie was 330. And Jay was like 295.
500.
And dude, they were like, it was in the Tribeca Performing Arts Center, which was a really cool place for a show. They don't ever do shit like that anymore. And they came into the crowd, everyone was going nuts. And I had never seen anything like when somebody's that big, your reaction is you just laugh. Like you just can't stop laughing, you know, like you don't know what else to do. And so at the end of the day, I starved myself and I didn't drink water. I stopped drinking water on a Thursday night, right? I listened to this old school bodybuilder. So by Saturday, I'm like majorly dehydrated.
Yeah.
Right? So we go out for pizza after the show and I actually fainted in the pizza place. Next thing you know, I'm like waking up and I'm in a fucking ambulance. And I'm like, no way. My first show, my family's all here. I'm in an ambulance. I was just severely dehydrated, right? So they're like trying to do all these tests to me, this and that. My mom opens up the thing. And she goes, the nicest man is here and he wants to know if you're okay. Do you want me to get him? And I was like, no, I don't want you to get anybody. She was like, he's hanging out with your brother. His name is Jay Cutler. I'm like, oh my God, Jay Cutler? I'm like, no.
I'm embarrassed.
I'm like, that's so embarrassing. I was like, let me get out of here, dude. I was so embarrassed that he like signed this thing.
Signs your cast.
Dude, I just got in the car of the girl that I was dating and I left. I left my family and we went home. So, but after that, like my parents said how awesome he was. Those guys were my favorite, but I respected that so much that my first show that I ever won was his show in 2006. And I got to hang out with him backstage, and it was just a really cool moment for me to think, like, this was the first guy that I ever saw, and now I'm winning his show, my first win. And then years later, we were able to talk more and more at shows, and then now I'm gonna see him today. And I told you the story. Like, I had my first Olympia booth in 2014, and I had a little I want to make sure I get this on video when I do it too, because I'm going to make it a little bit gay and funny. But so I was sitting there at a 10 by 10, and he walks by, and he looks at me and he goes, the hardest working man in the business right there. And I was like, how cool is that Jay, like says something like that? And I go, dude, I'm trying to make fat stacks like you, bro. And he goes, stack it to the ceiling. And then we all kind of laughed, and he walked away. So like years later, I always remembered him saying that, stack it to the ceiling. And so I had told the story to a bunch of people, and one of the guys I told the story to was Joe Reiser when he finally got to meet Jay. And so Jay was like, oh, you're working for Pj now. That's going to be great. You guys are going to be a good fit. And Joe goes, yeah, he told me the story. He goes, stack it to the ceiling. And Jay goes, that's right. I told him stack it all the way up. And he was like, Joe was like, how crazy is it that he remembered after all those years? And I'm like, no, dude, he remembers everything.
Yeah, he's got his communion money. He's got his stacks in the ceiling. That's where that is. Don't be fooled. Jay, I will say this. I think he's been such a calming force in the bodybuilding community. Like he's the stable one, like he's got it figured out, and he's just kind of chilling and sitting back and taking what comes to him, and that's the best position to be in. And that's what makes him such a kind of a guy to look up to. I guess you'd say, right? I guess he's not that tall, so nobody really looks up to him. I love you.
For a bodybuilder, he's fairly tall.
Yeah, he is. And, he surrounds himself with the right people, not everybody. And that's a testament to Jay. And he's been that way since day one. But him and Ronnie, that was a colossal interaction between them two over the years, just competing and going back and forth. And we'll never see anything like it again.
Never again.
And the money they were making then, we'll never see those dollars. And that's what's evolved. People don't understand what's changed in the fitness industry the most. Just winning isn't enough.
No. And listen, I still sponsor the shows because I love bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys in marketing and stuff, they're like, why are you going to keep giving money to these shows? And I'm like, you know what? The way I look at it is, this is where I started, and all my dreams started here, and it evolved into this business where
You don't want to turn your back on it.
you got 30 guys who are counting on me for medical benefits, and it all that came from me wanting to be a bodybuilder. So I'm not going to turn my back on it, you know, but I 100% see how much different it is now, and really social media has just changed the game for everything. You can have a great physique and know how to market yourself and take pictures on social media, and you don't even have to get on stage ever. You can make bank like that. Look at guys like Bradley Martin.
Yeah.
Paige Hathaway, I saw her compete at, I believe, Nationals many years ago, back when I was competing, and she didn't even place in the top 15. And then she went on to become like the most paid, famous, female,
Is it better, though, now that it's the fitness industry and it's not just bodybuilding? That's a question I wanted to ask you. Is it better?
Yes, because fitness is humongous, and bodybuilding is just a small, like, microcosm, right? So for me, I don't even look at. So people say Blackstone Labs is a bodybuilding company, right? In essence, all of anything that you do to work out is bodybuilding. Whether you're a bikini girl, like toning yourself, that's still bodybuilding. So we market to everybody in the gym. Like the bodybuilder crowd is a small crowd. That's I'm not really all that interested in that. I mean, that's my people, of course, but we market to the everyday gym goer. We market to the new people trying to make changes in their lives. Like, that's where fitness is at now. And those newbies, they're going to get into maybe CrossFit or maybe powerlifting, or maybe they will decide that they want to get into bodybuilding, but it all is encompassed by fitness.
Right.
And that's the big thing now. Fit bodybuilding has perhaps gotten a lot smaller, but fitness has gotten huge.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with what you just said. I think it's better too, and I think some old-time bodybuilders hate, the Bradley Martin types of those guys that come in and do that type, shake it up and cause the spotlight, I guess, to transition. It causes. What's been interesting in bodybuilding to watch is the regional shows. The guys that are doing it right have really blown up some of the regional shows, and they're using that Arnold model where they have kind of like a sports spectacular. Yeah. And that's kind of how shows have evolved and changed. And you see more of the tried and true just bodybuilding shows. Like, I'm here just to see, whatever. They've become more like pageants.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially on the female side.
Absolutely.
100%. You have 9 federations. There's 4 million pro cards. Yep. Every girl has a pro card, so that's changed the game tremendously, and they're creating more of like a pageant atmosphere around it.
Well, there's so many women that have gotten into fitness now. So people say to me all the time, they're like, why do you market so aggressively to women? And I'm like, because everybody's been marketing the guys for years. That's the easy part. You've got all of these girls. It's cool to have muscles now. For like, girls go to the gym and they want to have muscles. They don't want like some pink bullshit product.
Well, I like that they kind of watered down. I guess the word to use is watered down the women's division, because now you have like, the Dana Lynn's of the world that can really change the game. So it's not, the emphasis isn't on, I just want to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as a woman, but it is cool now to be toned and in shape. And
well, there's a place for everyone, because you've got the bikini division, which is
20 divisions,
small, fit, and toned, and then you've got the wellness division, which I freaking love. Wellness is my favorite, because the wellness girls are girls with jacked legs, but their upper bodies are athletic and tight, and they're not like, I hate to say it like this, guys, but you guys know what I'm talking about. They're not like overly drugged out looking.
Right. Right, overly drugged.
Now you get into the women's physique division, which is really, really respectable, because the figure division is the trickiest. The figure division, either you have the structure or you don't, because you literally just stand forward, sideways, back, and then that to the front again. So if you don't have the right small hips, wide shoulders, you're never going to do good, no matter what you do with your physique. That's it. It's structural based, and that's why figure's gotten a lot smaller. Women's physique, the girls that were doing good in figure but maybe didn't have the right structures, they started putting on a little bit more and doing the women's physique, and now you have the bodybuilding class, which is the biggest of the big,
over
the
the top.
Yeah. And bodybuilding, women's bodybuilding is back now. And I respect those girls, because, I mean, they're machines. But it's it's unfortunately not an accepted look by society. You know what I mean? And that's why they changed, you got the one end of the spectrum, the bikini girls that look like they may just run a lot. And then you got the giant female bodybuilders and then everything in between. And then you have the different federations that have all these other different divisions too. So they've made it where women that, whether if they played sports in high school and wanted something else to do, whether they were a gymnast and wanted something else to do, or maybe they just joined a gym and needed something else to like focus on, there's a spot for all of them to do somewhere.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. It's changed a lot. The game's changed a ton. Now, along the way, you've always been a supporter of the shows. You mentioned that. You've always been a guy on stage giving the awards, whatever, involved in every aspect of it. That has to be one of the more gratifying opportunities for you.
Yeah, I still love that. So it's kind of funny, but I always want to hand out, I've always handed out the bikini trophies. I've always said, I'm like, I want the bikini girls. Let me have them. That was always my thing. But now that wellness started, so when I first saw wellness, I was in Colombia in 2018, and they didn't have wellness in the United States yet. So all of these girls in South America with the big butts and the thick thighs, like, and the tight waists, I had never really seen women like this before.
Yeah.
I'm like, where are all these unicorns, and why don't we have them
right.
in the United States? And they were all competing in this wellness division. So I was with J.M. Mannion, and, Mr. Mannion Sr. is the president of everything. I'm like, you got to tell your dad that he's got to bring this. This will be huge. And they wound up not doing it for a couple more years. And you see some of these girls, like, even the ones that don't even compete, like the girl Vivian Winkler that's got like 6 million followers, whatever, that just have these ridiculous, round butts and big legs. Like, guys love that look, and women want to attain it. Like, all women these days, like, I meet girls in the gym all the time. They're like, I'm on my 4th booty day this week. You know what I mean? And so that division now has gotten my attention the most, where the inaugural wellness division at the Pittsburgh Pro, which is the president's show, he actually reached out to me and he was like, I know you love wellness so much. How would you like to be the title sponsor of the inaugural wellness? So I actually got to be the title sponsor. Of course, I got friggin' COVID when that went down, so I didn't get to go there and hand out the trophies. But like, those girls, those are going to be the girls that you go see battle it out at the Olympia this year. Yeah. And now it's all, it's growing really fast, and it's exciting.
Yeah, it's the women's divisions are loaded. There's just the outpouring of what you see come in and compete is pretty crazy. Yeah. So it's evolved a ton. Now, Blackstone, came out with some revolutionary products. I want to get to that because I've enjoyed a ton of them. And we were talking earlier about the fucking Dynamite and Ultimate Orange and everything else. But you guys piggybacked off of that and came out with so many different innovations that were unique. I was a taker and a believer of glycolog, of all the different formulations. I know you did a post the other day about it. I was looking at it and I was like, think of all the things. It's almost like they become your babies.
Yeah. Glycolog is the product that I'm most proud of by far.
By far.
And I even like through 2019 into 2020, when I was really sick, I still never stopped taking my Glycolog. And it requires more education for people to understand why everyone should take it. Also, you can't make medical claims, so you got to be very careful about how you market things. But the reason that we developed Glycolog was I had a kid named the Gorilla Chemist working for me, and he was brilliant. And I had a product called Formula 19 that I was using it when I was competing. All of the big guys, we were taking fast-acting insulin when we were competing, and we were loading ourselves up with things like Carbolin post-workout to suck up all the glycogen, right? So I said, he had said to me one day, he was like, what do you think changed bodybuilding the most? Was it like the GH? What was it? And I was like, honestly, it was the insulin. And the way that you use insulin. I'm like, because when I used insulin, I got myself from a quality 260 to a quality 280. And you learn to do it the right way with fast-acting insulin, where you're maximizing the glycogen loading, you are getting better pumps, you're staying leaner, you're being able to eat more carbs, and you're growing and you're getting bigger, you're becoming very anabolic. I said, if we could harness that and come up with a natural product that works that way, that stabilizes blood sugar, shuttles all the glycogen into your muscles the right way, it will change the industry.
Just so everybody knows, too, listening, insulin is like not the secret of bodybuilding, but it's something where PJ and I offline could name 20 names of guys that if they took insulin, they would have been superstars. Yeah. Some guys want to dabble in it and some guys did not. And there are guys I know personally that are like, I just never wanted to get into insulin. That's why I never cracked that level.
Yeah.
Because fucking around with that, you got to be in it for life.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to be in it for life.
And there are some guys who sadly did things very stupidly and didn't have the right people paying attention to them that actually wind up dying. And you can always tell when it's an insulin-related death. Now, it's not...
Organs, things.
It's usually not specifically, he took insulin and died. There's a lot of other factors involved with it. But that is what was getting the guys to be as big as they really could be.
So to be able to eat as much, to be able to hold as much.
And still be lean and still be training that way. So I was like, there's a way that you could take that whole
concept,
but make it healthier where everybody can do it. And that was how glycolog was formulated.
Take out some of the bugs, limit some of the risk.
That's the only product, like to this day, that I spent literally like $30,000 trying to get a patent, and it's so hard. It's so fucking
can attest
hard.
to its success because I ate 2 pizzas, remember, and I had like 40 glycolog tablets, and I don't believe that I gained a pound, even though there's no white paper on it. I don't believe I gained a fucking pound.
No, we did a medical study on that one. We had doctors in, we had scientists take everybody's blood. We all took 50 grams of dextrose with the glycolog. We all they pricked our fingers every 15 minutes to watch how fast it controlled everybody's blood sugar. It's mind-blowing. And so now I can't make any sort of medical claims, but I will say that we have diabetics writing in all the time, and they're saying, hey, glycolog has helped me out so much that I actually don't have to take metformin anymore, or I'm taking way less of my regular insulin, and my doctor's like, this is a phenomenal product. We have doctors telling us all the time, like, this is such a smart product, and many doctors tell people to take those ingredients that are in glycolog. We just have them all perfectly together in the right formula for everyone. So I'm so proud of that. So I can't go out here and say, hey, listen, it'll get you off your insulin and everything like that. I can't make medical claims, but I can tell you that we have a diabetic working for us who she that's how we met. She was like, I actually cut my dosage of insulin in half by controlling my blood sugar with glycolog. It's that important of a product to me. So now you have people who are getting older, they're unhealthy, they're eating like shit, and instead of doctors having them clean up their lives, they're just telling them, all right, you're going to take this metformin, or you're going to take this new diabetes medication. That way you can still eat like shit, and you'll live a little bit longer.
Right.
And it's sad because those same people could use glycolog and not have to get into the medicine the right way, and most likely be in the same spot. I've had a bunch of guys that have gone down that road, and obviously the best thing to do from there is make the changes to your exercise and to your nutrition.
Have people try to rip it off?
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
Who?
So here's the thing: when I
haven't seen anything like it.
There's a few companies that have products that are similar to it that aren't
like
as
knockoffs.
good. Yeah, there's probably like 10.
Any you give a shit about?
No, I mean, I don't want to say their names anyway because people are going to go and check them out.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was, this is what's really tricky about the supplement industry, right? Unless you have like a single ingredient, like if you come out with one ingredient that you can patent, which my partner has done that, or a method of like the liposomal technology, how he has done with the DHA stuff, you can patent that. A formula is almost impossible to patent without numerous studies and numerous doctors, because somebody could come in and take that formula and just change the milligrams.
Right.
Each one's
it's the same thing in the gun industry. They make one little change.
They're like, mine's different. Mine's better.
Yeah.
And I gave up after a while trying so hard, and I was like, I just wanted to protect it from being ripped off because it was such a brilliant idea.
Well, I mean, there's some that come up, some knockoffs, like you remember the old knockoffs of like Celtec and other things.
Yeah, of course.
There's always somebody coming out like, we put 10 times more sweet juice in it or something. There's some 8 times more this. I always joke in our business, they're like, we made the gun 0.2 lighter. And we're all like, whoa, like we shaved off an inch, like no way. And that's what you know how it is.
Yeah.
So first through the wall, you're always going to have the copycats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, innovation in itself is always something that should be applauded because it takes time anyway. But there was not even a category for that. So when we had a similar product that we were making like a weaker version through my old company, Prime Nutrition, which was sold on bodybuilding.com and Vitamin Shop. And they were like, where does this go on the shelf? It's not a pre-workout. It's not a... So we actually came up with the name glucose disposal agent. And that's now there are, if you go into vitamin
It's a
shops,
category.
like that, there's a category that says glucose disposal agent.
You started
GDAs.
it. You're the first.
We were the ones that started it.
You're the start. Yeah. Maybe with a little bit of a nod to Carabalin in that, and not in the same space, right?
Well,
Maybe.
So the carbohydrate. So I had my version of Carbolin, which is Formula 19 first. And the reason I came out with Formula 19 was because I was telling guys to take Carbolin and all these other things with their insulin. And I'm like, why don't I just come out with my own version?
Yeah, come out with your own version.
That? And that's what Formula 19 was. So I basically took what I was putting into the Carbolin, mixed it all into one product, so you don't have to go out and buy 5. And that was Formula 19. I was very, very proud of it. And they were like, so I just drink this and I'm going to get huge. I'm like, well, we were doing it with insulin. And that was how the whole glycolog idea came.
Do you think eventually we'll get to a point where you'll be able to, not at a genetic level, but at a supplementation level, fix things, like make you, how will it evolve? Like, what does the future of the supplement industry look like? You know, what does it become? Like, will I be able to drink a drink and have muscles, you know?
Obviously, what's really evolved the most now is the presence of HRT clinics, right? So HRT clinics, they're going to take your blood work. They're going to look at everything very closely. They're going to look at where all of your hormones are, not just your testosterone. They're going to look at estrogen, progesterone, prolactin, thyroid stimulating hormone. They're going to look at everything. And they're going to put you on the right medical doses of things like testosterone or aromatase inhibitors to make your body completely optimal as if you were 25. Now, with that, there are numerous vitamins and other things that they look at as well. For instance, low levels of vitamin D throw everything off. And that's why we have a liposomal delivery of vitamin D, because it absorbs that much better. And low levels of iron. There's all these things that if you go to an HRT clinic, they're actually perfecting what people are taking. And a lot of them are white labeling supplements. So eventually I would like to branch into the HRT aspect, because I'm very passionate about the chemistry and pharmacology part anyway. And then I would piggyback Blackstone products into the way that we did a lot of the natural things.
That might be the future where it goes, because there hasn't been a brick and mortar store that's evolved national. Like I think that's the way it goes. Like you just go in, you get your blood work. You need this that's over the counter. You need that isn't, and that's how it's going to be.
They have very, very, you're going to pay a little bit more, but they have very, very thorough blood panels now that can even tell you if you're low in omega-3s. I mean, they can test for everything now.
Yeah.
And then when you see these things that aren't working the right way, you can supplement them in, and then you can actually see the progress on your next blood work. And I've seen it happen with my cholesterol before, where I had my total cholesterol itself was low, but my ratio to HDL and LDL was like 5-to-1, because I was at, like, let's say I had like 100 and then 20, right? So they're like, you're not making enough of the good cholesterol for your body to work the way that you needed to. So I was like, all right, well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to supplement with some different fish oil products, and I'm going to take some ubiquinol. And making those changes, I believe it was about 3 months later, I went back, I gave it a little bit of time, went back in, I checked it out, and I had evened things out a lot better. And really, with those numbers, I've gotten so deep into the HRT that a lot of people don't even realize like what they're supposed to be looking at. But your ratio, I spoke to a cardiologist, the ratio of cholesterol, 3-to-1 is perfect, right? So some people get all freaked out because they're like, oh, I have a 250 total cholesterol. I got to get my cholesterol down. But you can get your cholesterol down 50 points. And if your ratio is still really, really bad, you're not any more healthy. You've got to have that 3-to-1 HDL LDL ratio, because first of all, so many people don't even know what cholesterol is and what it does. But the good cholesterol is actually carrying stuff from your heart to your liver, helping your
move
body
the enzymes along.
Move the enzymes along the right way. So if you don't have anything doing that, then you get really backed up and clogged up, and that's when a lot of people start having issues with having to take statins and things like that later on, and just a whole vicious cycle. But you can get blood work, figure out your weaknesses, and then supplement with that naturally for a lot of it now.
Yeah, I think it's going to evolve just like you said. I think eventually you'll be able to walk in a store, get a blood panel, you'll pay a set fee, and then you'll be able to fill in those holes.
In Florida, there are HRT clinics everywhere.
Yeah.
It's different in different parts of the country. Like I have people up in Connecticut, they're like, oh, there's only one place that does it. In Florida, there's a spot where I used to live that had 4, all within walking distance of each other. So they're popping up more and more and more.
Yeah, it's becoming... it's becoming common, and I think as it becomes common, I think that's where you're absolutely right. You're going to walk in and you're going to see supplements in there.
Yeah. And now you have all the intravenous vitamins that people are doing. Because I'm a huge advocate of that.
Yeah, it's a better delivery system for the product in terms of just like, hey, I can go in and one stop get everything. So that's why you're seeing GNCs die and chains die, and you're seeing the local dealers come in. And like right here in Vegas, if you go over to what is it, the nutrition shop right up here, next to Protein Source, you go in and there's supplements everywhere. Right next door is an HRT.
Yeah. Oh, we have an account that's out here that's huge. It's Vegas Discount Nutrition.
Yeah, Vegas Discount Nutrition. They're around the corner.
Yeah, those guys kill it.
Yeah, you should go in and see them while you're here.
I should go see them while I'm here. That's one of my dad's accounts. Those guys are big time.
Yeah, they're big. They're huge. So it's been an amazing ride. I'm a believer. You've been through it all in this business. I mean, it's crazy to see, sitting here and, no matter what happens, no one can take away what you built.
Thank you.
Right? No matter how it plays out. And I'm rooting for you, and I'm rooting for everybody involved, and I'm excited because I know how passionate you are about the business, and I do believe that the business needs you.
Thank you. I finally now have an actual trial date after all these years of 4 years just wondering when's it going to happen, when's it going to happen, having it hung over your head and all the things that you go through that people don't realize with something like that, losing bank accounts, not being able to have credit, all these things that we've had to, run the company that much harder because of. So now October 12th, we go to trial, and I've said all this time, man, after everything that I went through, I hit rock bottom when I was in the hospital a little over 3 years ago. I had a 429 alcohol level. They told my mom I was probably going to die, and somehow I didn't die.
429's amazing.
The doctor told my mom we've never seen anybody out of the threes before.
You break every record.
No, but
you should look into that.
My mom, when I came out of it, I was like, man, I was having this dream that you were screaming in my face saying, you're not going to die before me. And she goes, no, I was in the emergency room doing that. And I was like, I guess I was sort of awake. And she was like, she actually said that they were the fact that he's still kind of coherent, that probably is only saving grace, but we've never seen anyone this size. So I had my blood alcohol was 429. My blood pressure was 240 over 200. So they had to give me medicine to start bringing that down right away. My resting heart rate was 189. So they had to freaking help bring that down. They were like, look, he's going to die, And I had gone on a bender of drinking a couple liters of vodka all through the night. It was a long weekend. My divorce was finally finalized.
At least it was booze and not heroin.
No, it was just a shitload of fucking Kettle One vodka.
Yeah.
And my mom just, for whatever reason, knew something was up. She came to my house. I was passed out by the pool in a chair in the freaking sun. And she somehow got me the car, got me to the hospital. And 6 days later, and that was an experience, because when you go to the hospital with your blood alcohol that high, you're considered a suicide risk. So they put you in the psych ward after.
Right.
So I wake up with no shoelaces on my shoes, and I had to stay there for a few days, and then I had to pass evaluations. But when I got out, seeing how devastated my parents were and everything else.
Oh, sure.
I was so ashamed. I was like, look, I'm never gonna drink ever again. I went through a bunch of shit with this divorce. I'm just going to show you through my actions. We're not going to have to worry about this ever again. And that was seeing my mom and dad like that and being in the hospital.
It was enough.
That was enough. And I haven't drank since then, but I've been on a mission to get this shit back to where I want it to be. And I've been on the top of the hill for a while, just looking down at all I need to do is get through this case. And I'm sprinting through when the case is done. And everyone that knows me knows they're like, dude, when your case is done, you're just going to be like.
But what's your prediction? I mean, how does it? You said earlier you got a great team.
Yep.
Do you think it plays out where the company will always be there?
Yes, the company will be there no matter what. Let's say that worst case scenario that I have to go to jail for a little while. There's going to be people that know how to run the company. My dad will run the company. There's people involved. They're going to lose the face.
Yeah.
But people are going to pay attention. Our products are just that damn good. We put a lot into that. I still believe that justice will be served the right way, and that we will come out on top. And I've never for a second not felt that way. So
yeah, and
you have to prepare for the worst. You have to. So we're prepared for the worst, but it's going to be probably a 5-6 week trial. We've got amazing expert witnesses. I'm sure they got whatever on their side, but we're ready to go. We're prepared.
Well, everything's in place. Well, I love having you. How long have we been going? It's like an hour, well over. You don't have to whisper back there like the peanut gallery. Jesus. So,
that was good.
Listen, I loved having you.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you coming out and taking the time. And I know everybody listening that doesn't understand, this is a guy that managed to build something special, and he didn't, he came from a very similar upbringing as I like to compare myself to, and you can never take that away from you. I'll always say that it's, you earn your piece of the universe, and no one can take that from you. For the rest of your days, you have to, I mean, listen, I think you're on top regardless of when you go home and you sit in the dark and think where you are, because I think that that's an amazing journey, and being able to build a business the way that you have and do the things that you've done, I think is something that everybody should look to aspire to.
Thank you. And I honestly, like, I've known you for so long, and you know what I'm about, and you know me. A lot of people just don't know me. They just know what they see on social media. And so for me to see how awesome that you're doing with the podcast too, I wanted to just come out here and hang out.
No, I love it.
And we had a really good ass time, but this was what I was this got me out of the house.
Yeah.
I haven't really done shit since COVID shut down.
Well, Vegas needs you too.
I mean, I'm going to do stuff out here. Vegas doesn't. It's quiet out
Vegas
here.
needs you. It's good to see you, and it's good to see you upbeat about everything, because I think that's what the team needs. I think that's the shape of a true leader, and I think maybe that's your last evolution in terms of developing, and just becoming that guy that stands up and says, this is what I think, this is what's going on, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to move forward. I liked Dana White before, but the story I'm going to tell. I fell in love with him when I heard the story about him getting everybody in the cafeteria when COVID hit. And he said, my number one job is to keep you guys employed and keep everybody working.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a real leader to step up and do those things.
Absolutely.
The things you do behind the scenes are one thing, but when you pull everybody in the room and you circle the wagons and you say, hey, this is what we're going to do, I'm excited to see where it goes, and it'll be a lot of fun, watching your journey from here, regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if the ball doesn't bounce your way and you have a Tyson return,
we're not going anywhere. We're going to be around no matter what. So
it's going to be fun to watch.
We've sustained over 8 years, 9 actually now, in the industry. We're here to stay. It's just a matter of how big we can get.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's going to continue to evolve. Now, next stop, barring the trial, will Blackstone be at, Arnold's next?
Whenever it is. So
whenever it is. Right. I asked Jay this.
Coincidentally, the Olympia is actually 2 days before my trial starts. So that's probably the last time anybody will see me for a little while. Hopefully just a little while.
The news, maybe.
And, yeah. And then, so next year, I'm very excited about is Athleticon, which is the Rock's big event.
Yeah.
So should see us there. The Arnold, I heard they're not having an expo.
I don't think so.
So we've always been a huge supporter.
I got to ask Jay that. He said he was on some call.
We've always been a huge supporter of the Arnold. Last time I checked, they weren't having an expo.
Yeah, so. I don't believe so. I don't think they're going to pull it off. But I loved having you, and it's been an honor, and I truly... I love having you as a friend.
No, thank you. We should probably make out or something.
No, I'm not going to do that. But check your oil. I'll try anything once, right? So $20 is $20, guys. Listen, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank PJ for stopping in. I'll put all the links down below. Go check out Blackstone. I want to thank a few of the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out a complete list there, but I want to thank a few now. Full Courts and Firearms, Enforced Weapon Lights, Black Water Ammunition, Enforced Weapon Lights, Pulsar Thermal Imaging Technology, and Right On Optics. Go check them all out. If you haven't checked out the bags from Advanced Warrior Solutions yet, guys, go check them out. They're sponsoring the show, and I want to give a shout out to Kuyu. Special thanks to Kuyu for the clothing and all the best camo on the planet. I want to thank PJ. I can't thank Blackstone enough, and appreciate everything all you guys do. Please leave reviews. That's what I was trying to say. Please leave reviews. They do a terrible job asking for them. Thanks, guys. We're out.
Woo. That was good. Fun. I knew it would be fun just catching up on good stories.